What is going on, guys? This is Trey's Raw here, and we are back again with another edition of the Raw Interviews. I got Treeb Talk sitting to my left. It's been probably a week since we've been on here, so Treeb, how have you been doing? It's good to see you again. What have you been getting into this last few weeks?
Well, I can tell you for a fact that it's been a week, and unfortunately for the fans of the YouTube channel...
This is pre-recorded.
Yeah. That is an unfortunate part of it. You know, no Madden gameplay in the background. We don't have, 300-pound wide receivers catching passes for some reason as a Madden glitch.
Not my fault.
Yeah, not your
Just
fault.
throwing that out there.
That's the EA garbage company that is. And unfortunately, we didn't have any shorts this week because I took a complete week off of your YouTube channel. So I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's all good. So, Treeb, we appreciate you being in here. You know, you might have taken a week off, but you're out here getting clips together. You're out here really trying to make an impact on not only my YouTube channel, but also your YouTube channel. And you actually had a little bit of a controversy yourself, so do you want to tell the Trey's Raw viewers about the comedy thing you got into?
So, I decided to say that Joe Rogan's stand-up special was bad, and the Rogan Sphere didn't like that very much, and unfortunately, that makes me a fat liberal.
Yeah.
And you know, they can call me fat all they want, but one thing's for sure, Trey, I've never had CNN on my TV for more than any seconds. More than when I was flipping channels. I've never even had Fox News on our TV. So I thought that comment was hilarious, but... No, I'm enjoying getting a lot of views from that, and it's always sunny. And, it's been a good time. And I'm excited to get this podcast going because this is the first time we've ever had an in-studio guest.
Yeah.
Try.
So we do have an in-studio guest. We got Baney in the building. And so my first question to you about that is when I see the name Baney, I just want to say Barney for some reason. that just seems like a unique name. So do you... So do a lot of people kind of get that mixed up, or is that just me, you think?
Just jerks do, Trey.
I told you.
Yeah.
No, I used to get that a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But less so as an adult. Although my kids get it too at school. It might be maybe young people say that, but no, it is Baney. It's a proud Irish name, and I'll kindly thank you to pronounce it correctly.
All right.
And his first name is Matt, by the way.
Oh, okay, but you just had Baney on. So that's his nickname.
No, it's his last name.
Okay. Well, you had Baney on.
Yeah,
that's what he goes by.
Well, that's his last name.
Okay.
That's his birth given name.
Yeah. I'll answer to that too. That's fine.
But what I'm saying is like, do you address him Matt or Baney?
I usually call him Baney, old timer, gangster, boss, anything of the sorts.
Yeah.
But Baney mostly for me. You know, Trey said the funniest thing before we did the interview with Theo last time. He said, I don't feel comfortable that we're using these people's real names on the podcast.
Yeah. Well, no. So because him being an older guy, he can attest to this, right? Because you've seen, the internet from when it first started to where it's at now, and it's a little bit more common now. But back when it first started, that was like the big thing, right? Is that when you're on the internet, you don't tell people your whole name, where you're from, that sort of thing. So do you think I'm completely out of pocket for that, or am I too much of a boomer for doing that?
Well, my thing was we're interviewing people that are journalists that have their name in the newspaper every day, was my thing. So.
Yeah, Trey, I'm not too concerned about my full name being out there.
Right.
And it may be associated with YouTube characters is what I should be concerned with. Yeah. But internet security, no, I'm okay there.
Our parents were so serious about us and not giving our names out there that my Gmail to this day, and I know you know because I share stuff with you for work, is Trevin Pixton.
Yes. I remember when I would get when we first started working together, and I'd see that, I'd be like, "Well, what's this guy's name?"
Yeah.
It confused me. I wasn't quite sure what was going on.
That's how Trey felt when he saw the notes. So, that would, a lot of confusion on names today.
Treeb's going to have a lot of people emailing them from the Joe Rogan special now that they know.
Oh, your email's out there.
Yeah, now my email's out there.
That's a good point.
I better not give my street address out there.
Yeah. Anyway, so we appreciate you being on, and so tell me about how long have you been in kind of the news industry as a whole? You would say.
Oh man, I'm looking at Treeb here to make a joke. Trey, I've done this for a long time. I first started working at the Lewiston Tribune in 1997 as a part-timer, and I worked in sports for many years. I started out as a part-time sports writer then when I was going to college at Lewis Clark State, and then I briefly left when I graduated to Sioux Falls, South Dakota for about half a year, and then a full-time job came open here, so I came back for that in 2002, and I have been here ever since then as a full-timer and worked in sports up until 2019, and I've been on the news side of the newspaper business since then.
Yeah. So what would you say? Would you say that growing up, because did you grow up in this area?
Yep, I'm an Idaho guy from all the way back
60s.
As a little tiny guy, we lived out in the woods in Pierce. And then my dad was a logger, and then we moved to Lewiston when I was 7, and I've been in Lewiston ever since then.
Right. Okay, so just going off of that, obviously being from Idaho, especially, going back then, it's a pretty rural part of town. And I can imagine that, you tell someone, hey, I want to get involved in news. It's probably not all that common back then. So what made you specifically, back in those days, want to pursue this career instead of, I guess what would be the norm, like working
logging
out of farm work and
Why
stuff
not logging?
like that?
Yeah. Why not following Dad's footsteps?
Right. Well, for me, it kind of, when I was a young guy, it kind of boiled down to I love sports. I love sports so much, but I wasn't very good at them.
That's a common theme, huh?
Yeah. So I was like, man, I really like sports. I'd like to work in that field, but I wasn't going to play them. So I kind of just found I had an aptitude to write about them, and luckily I did that some in high school, and then in college I did it, and I worked for the school newspaper at LCSC, the Pathfinder, and wrote the sports stories and news stories for that paper. And Bert Sahlberg, who was the sports editor at the Tribune at the time, he was kind of an advisor to the school newspaper, and he saw what I would write in there in the school newspaper, and he said, "Hey, how would you like to be a part-timer at the Tribune?" And I jumped at that, and I really enjoyed my time at Lewis Clark State College, but I always say that my real education was here at the Tribune. All 4 years of going, as a freshman I didn't work here, but sophomore, junior, senior, and then super senior year, I worked here at the Tribune as a part-timer, and worked with guys in the sports staff that had done it for a long time and were all pros, and learned everything from those guys, and great mentors, all those guys, and that was that's how I picked it up. I was not a good athlete, but was okay about writing about sports.
What was working at the Pathfinder like? Because you hear in this area, we got the Argonaut at Idaho. We talked about it with Theo in our podcast, which is, back in the day when he was there, it was an award-winning student newspaper. WSU has the Daily Evergreen, correct?
That's right.
And that's also a really well-run student newspaper. The Pathfinder, you don't hear a whole lot about. What was that like? And is there a lot of good talent coming out of there too as well? Obviously, they produced Matt Baney.
Well, yeah, and we have a few alums in the newsroom now that worked at the Pathfinder, and it's I was the last person to ever graduate from LCSC with a journalism minor. They eliminated the program after that, and they really they've over the years they've had some journalism classes. I've even been involved in teaching a couple of them, but the journalism program isn't totally robust. There's some good folks there now that teach some good classes, but there's not a minor or a major there anymore. Actually, when I went to here's one that'll really make me sound old. When I went to school at LCSC, my journalism teacher was Lad Hamilton, who is like one of the all-time greats at the Tribune from the old days. And so Lad Hamilton was the journalism teacher. And at the Pathfinder, it doesn't quite have the infrastructure that the Idaho and the WSU newspapers have, but the group I worked with a lot of folks who were really good friends, and who a lot of them I had gone to school with at Lewiston High School. I even really kind of met my wife at the Pathfinder. Anyway, we had great times. That just socially, it was a lot of fun, and also we, I put out a pretty good newspaper, I think.
Talk to me about that '90s staff, because it was. I mean, you've told some stories about it. I mean, from you being a part timer to obviously getting the full time bump. I mean, you guys were stacked. You had great mentors.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Talk to me about that era.
Yeah, Bert Solberg was the sports editor. Jim Browett was the assistant sports editor. Dale Grummer was a sports writer, and Doug Bauer was the other full timer. And anyway, guys that this is old school, Trey. Old school, man. This is there wasn't. We didn't have any internet. There's no internet.
Yeah, you didn't have to be afraid to give your identity out back then.
That's right. And that in some ways made the job easier, and of course made it harder too. Yeah. There are things that we used to have to do back then that I can't even relate to nowadays.
What's an example of that?
Well, going to the fax machine to getting news releases, and there was no quickly looking up stats. You had to phone people. You had to get a media guide out. And listen, Trey, a media guide printed on paper, and you had to open it, and you had to flip through it to find stats.
Well, let me ask you this: has there ever? Did you ever, in Office Space, that printer seeing it? Did you ever try to replicate that yourself, or no? Did you?
Once I'll leave the names out of it. Someone, one of my colleagues, shot a turnaround jumper on the Nerf hoop and bumped the fax machine off and broke it into several pieces. I think we put it back together.
That's pretty impressive. You're able to put the fax machine back together.
Yeah, I know. That might have been when we got rid of the fax machine.
I mean, think about that. You put that fax machine back together. Think about how long it took us to get this mic to work before figuring out we were plugging in a USB that wasn't even connected to the microphone. And that wasn't even Baney's fault. That was me, the youngest person in the room, that made that mistake.
Yeah. And Trey sniffed it out, everybody. Yeah. He figured out that it was the wrong cord.
Well, Trey's always been, more advanced in technology than I think he gives himself credit for.
Yeah. Should have went to school for that.
Now,
sort of thing.
Trey is in IT, is that right?
No,
security.
It's security.
Yeah, I just said that jokingly.
Yeah.
But maybe, do you like computers and stuff, do you think you could be an IT person? Do you have the personality to be an IT?
I got the dull personality of an IT worker for sure.
Yeah, you got an equivalent personality to our main IT guy, I would say.
You would say.
Yeah.
No shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, no shots fired in case he's listening.
Yeah. I'm sure he's. I know one of our IT guys is a big subscriber to Treeb Talk, so maybe.
Shout out to them.
Yeah.
But,
He told everybody that made fun of my AC noises in my last video that he had all their IP addresses. So shout out to him.
Oh man,
yeah.
That's a guy you want on your side.
He's getting after him.
So, going back to, you said, you grew up being a sports guy. And this was actually something that I had talked to Trevin about when we did the podcast. And I was telling him, who were some of your inspirations that kind of made you, because when we were growing up, of course, it was more, you had, the Skip Baylesses of the world, the Stephen A. Smiths. But, like, back when you were coming up, there wasn't, a whole lot of that. So I was just wondering, back in those days, because I think Mel Kiper probably was the first, grind. A lot of people give Mel Kiper crap, but when he was coming up, he was grinding and kind of putting his whole draft analysis before it was even thought of. So was there any good radio personalities that were kind of doing it back then, similar to when me and Tree were growing up?
Baney was around for the invention of radio.
Yeah.
So we gotta figure out.
Well, so Trey, I like. In fact, I got to be honest. When I first started thinking about going into sports media, I was probably in kind of junior high, and I loved the newspaper, but I really loved Sports Center. I watched Sports Center all the time. And, in that era, it was, guys, Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann, they were great. And here's what Mel Kiper, what I remember about him is Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann would make fun of Mel Kiper all the time. And that was one of those times that I was like, wow, this is cool. It was neat how they were, it wasn't just the old-fashioned, cheesy TV stuff. It was these guys were being sarcastic and funny.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is neat. This is kind of fun. And so I kind of pictured that. And then, as I'm thinking about TV, that'd be neat. To sort of prepare for that, I started working at the school newspaper. And then just the newspaper situation, I just kind of fell into that, and I was like, well, I like this a lot. I like writing, I like telling stories, and I never really pursued anything else. It ended up being just, hey, the newspaper game's kind of for me.
Yeah, and I think even the most pure writers, they have to admit, like the Skip Baylesses for us, the Stephen A. Smiths, and then the Dan Patricks and Mel Kipers for you, that's how all of us got into journalism, I think. It's the entertainment value that they brought to TV, I think.
Oh, yeah. It's, anyway, when you're a kid and you love sports and these guys are being sarcastic and funny about it, it's like, man, I want to be there. I like that. Yeah.
And then, going into the old days of sports journalism, Baney, paint us a picture of the 1990s sports scene and writing sports. What was that like and compared to today?
Well, okay, that's a good question because it is a lot different, and honestly, I sort of hate to say this as a newspaper guy in 2024. I think people paid a lot more attention to us because there was so fewer ways to learn about sports and news in general, and so it really did kind of feel like you had more of an audience. Now, it's kind of weird, though, because it's hard to quantify that. Mm-hmm. You knew what your newspaper's circulation was, but, the neat thing about nowadays is you can have direct feedback from readers on via social media. Back then, it was a lot less. You might get a phone call or an email, but You didn't have that direct connection. And then just the work itself was different. We weren't always concerned about, we got to get this online right now. We didn't say, you got to get a video, you got to do a podcast, you got to do this and that. All you had to do was write stories for the newspaper.
The sports guys today would kill for that.
And honestly, yes, you're right. That's why it's, like I say, in some ways the work is easier now because there's more tools at your disposal. But in a lot of ways, it's much, much harder.
The grind's harder.
Yes, I think so, for sure.
Yeah.
You could kind of be done with it at times back then. Once you got your story turned in and the paper out, you're kind of done then until the next day. Now it's never ends.
Yeah, and on to that point, there was times when I was on the Idaho beat reporter, it felt like I had no days off. It's either I'm doing a story or I'm doing a podcast, I'm doing something, even on my days off. Did it feel like that back in the day, or were there days you had off?
It did feel like that grind. I mean, we'd work every day just like you guys did. But I think there were more breaks. The thing nowadays that I am thankful I didn't have to worry about was the transfer portal.
It's the worst.
Now, I'm in favor of the transfer portal for the athletes. I think it's great. You look back on some of the things in the old days, the control that the program would have over the athletes. Now it looks so antiquated and ridiculous. It's a good development. But for the poor sports writers, they've got to pay attention to that.
Daily.
Yes.
Every sport.
And I am very thankful I didn't have to worry about who's in the transfer portal and where they're going and all of that.
Yeah.
And it has made it harder to be a fan, too, hasn't it?
I would say so. And then just one more thing on the 90s sports. I read a book, Baney. I don't know if you
did?
I don't know if you knew that. Yeah.
How many pages?
Not the whole book. Whatever was available for free online, because I saw Jeff Pearlman tweet it and said it was a good book, and I had read it, I think 40 pages of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, at least I'm being honest. But Pond Scum and Vultures, and it's basically a story about the landscape of sports writing in the 90s, and it was written in the 90s, so... And they talk about a lot of, cigarette smoking in the press box, things like that, people drinking and things. Did you see a lot of that back in the day?
It was starting to get cleaned up by the time I came around.
Yeah.
But certainly there were more kind of characters, I got to be around when, at covering WSU football games in the press box when... Harry Missildine and Heck Hancock would show up. These are old-timey sports writers, Harry, famously, they, in the WSU press box, I don't know if they still do this now. They probably don't have to since Harry's not around anymore. But there would be someone who would get on the internal mic in the press box and say, "There's no cheering in the press box."
No.
Because Harry Missildine would... be watching the game, ostensibly covering it, and he'd say, "Come on, Cougs! Damn it! Get a first down!" and you're like, Harry, and it just brazen about it. And there's lots of stories about Harry. Probably my favorite is, and this is, I got to give credit to the right person. I think this was in John Blanchett's story when Harry died, I think. John Blanchett from The Spokesman, another, fabulous writer. And anyway, he had a column when Harry died. I'm pretty sure that's where I remember reading this. The WSU coach, football coach at the time, I forget who it was, but this is in the 70s. He would wake up in the morning after a game, head down to the office to watch film, and when he got up, he found Harry in his kitchen eating breakfast with his wife because Harry had spent the night there that night. Now, Treeb, can you ever imagine yourself waking up in Jason X's house and having breakfast with his wife when Jason goes to watch game film?
Inconceivable.
Inconceivable.
No, Jason X's wife is around a lot for practices and stuff. Nice lady. But, and that was, I know you listened to the podcast or whatever, but that's like what I was trying to tell Trey in the first couple episodes. Or I think the first episode we did is like, he would kind of refer to like me and Idaho as like, we were like fans of Idaho and like, that's kind of the stigma. Like, if you are a sports writer and you root for the team, you kind of get looked at as like a clown.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be my next question. So, would you say that back when you were reporting that, the whole code of when you are doing reporting on sports, you try not to be too biased, quote unquote, even if when you're working for the team, you try to be as, I guess, objective as you can. Do you think that they were less strict about that now or more back then than they are now, or about the same?
I'd say it's about the same now. I think by the time I came around, the idea of being objective was well in place, despite relics like Harry hanging around cheering. That's why it was so so notable, was that everybody else was there doing their job, focused and not cheering. But here was Harry banging on the table saying, "Come on, Cougs, let's do it."
Yeah. No, and I remember there was like one Argonaut kid when I went to the Eastern Washington game, and he was cheering in the press box, and he was sitting right next to me, and everybody was looking at him, and I was like, oh man. But it's a good learning experience,
Yeah, I hope somebody maybe quietly said to the kid, "Hey, we don't cheer in the press box."
Yeah, no.
Is that how to get yourself like there? So there's like a sorority of sports writers. So when you see someone like that, you all just look at each other and say, "Yeah, we ain't going for that."
The sorority of sports writers all get together and say that. Yeah.
What are the other codes in sports writing that you don't want to break?
You don't cheer in the press box.
Okay.
You don't say "we" when you refer to the team. Any other good ones?
For sports writers, here's one for me. When it's a late game and you're on deadline, don't. Sometimes people would ask the wrong questions in the post-game press conference, like people, maybe our friends in television would sometimes ask questions that they maybe were saving for late. Anyway, asking the right questions in the press conference, and what I mean is just the ones relative to that moment and not wasting too much time.
Yeah, especially when they're going to have a presser like on a Monday that's scheduled. And
you go.
Yeah, because I also, tune in because I recently, the whole reason why I kind of got into this was because I was starting to become more fascinated with just the overall beat reporting, the press conferences like Treeb has attended multiple times, got to ask Jason Eck questions and all that. And, one of the things that I've noticed when watching these press conferences is, or at least the ones that I've watched, is like, they almost like repeat the same question. Like, is that like some kind of strategy to kind of make them slip up and say something, or is that, just whatever?
I think you're right, especially, this is, you're watching when there's the hot topic of the day where they're trying to get the soundbite they want. Yeah, they're hoping that the coach or the athlete will slip up and say something that they can get lots of hits and views on.
Yeah, and I think also there's say there's like a problem like in the run game that week or something, and they give you like a coach speak answer. Sometimes you kind of try to rephrase that question to try to get the answer you're looking for out of them. I think there's sometimes you don't get the answer that you're looking for, so I think there is ways that you rephrase it. I think sometimes. Yeah.
So, Baney, is that something that you did back in your day, like do press conferences?
Like, sure,
nice,
yeah, we'd go to those, yeah.
Yeah. So, what team specifically were you?
Well, I covered Idaho football for many years, many bad years.
Yeah, he was as lucky as me.
Yeah. I was on the beat for Dennis Erickson's 1 year back at UI, and I got to I never was the beat writer, but I covered quite a bit of WSU football, writing the sidebar story with Dale Grummert, who was our longtime beat writer. And I'll tell you, Trey, here's something you never see now that was great. The WSU post game press situation used to be just beautiful. They would everybody would be in a room, and usually the coach would come out and say some things, and then athletes who we wanted to speak to, they'd send them in, and it was kind of a scrum. It was a free-for-all.
Yeah.
They would just take seats all over, and you could just go around and talk to everybody individually or in small groups. And that way, when there's, 15, 20 sports writers sitting in chairs staring up at a podium, that's no way to get decent quotes.
Yeah,
especially from college athletes.
Seems unorganized, so it's a lot. They're a little bit more strict with the organization.
Yeah,
now.
I would.
And that's another good question. Do you think that it's almost too organized to where? Because I do remember watching one press conference. I think I told you about this, right, when they had that onside kick situation, and they specifically came in and said, hey, to where he could possibly
get in trouble.
Yeah, I get. How is that something that you see a lot to where they to not ask, or is it pretty free in that regard? I guess I'm asking for both of you guys too on that one.
I don't think I've ever been in a position like in a press conference to not ask questions. I think I've been pulled aside a couple of times by like an SID, like during like a practice, and said, "Hey, don't ask this. They read your column or they read your story and they didn't like what you said," because I was pretty mean, I guess. But no, I wouldn't say not in a press conference sense. What about you, Baney?
Well, no, not really. What I found is there was the chilling effect of the coach. I could think of Rob Akey, who I really liked covering. He was a great guy, but he was the first guy I noticed who, at least in my coverage, he would give his chat, and then the players would come in front, and then he would just kind of hang around. Right. And I think that would, if the athletes were going to say anything interesting, well, him kind of looming around seemed to stop that. And I think I'm pretty sure he did that on purpose so they wouldn't say anything stupid. But and even him. I mean, it has even changed so much since then. I remember, when he was the coach, you could come to all practices, any practice, stay all you want. In fact, the couple times he did close practice, it was, if anybody had been paying attention, they should know that when he closed practice, that meant they were making some large change. Like, he closed practice one week, and it was pretty clear that their quarterback had gotten injured the week before, and, well, they were going to switch quarterbacks, and I can't remember if I ended up having that in my advanced story or not, but just the fact practice was closed, you knew something was brewing, so it I don't know, it wasn't terribly clever maybe.
So, and this is a question I want to ask you guys, so Treeb, I think you were still working for him when Petrino got
I was all eck when I was covering Idaho.
When you were covering Idaho, so...
Yeah.
So I want to ask, and would you say that, and I'm asking both of you guys, would you say that Jason Eck is the kind of guy that he likes talking to the media, he likes, interacting with you guys? Because when I see him, I kind of think he's like that. He's a lot more easygoing with that kind of thing.
Oh, way more than Petrino. He's great with us. I mean, I think... I've had great interactions with Jason Eck before, and I've had him pull me to the side and have him say some things that he thinks about what I've written, and then it's funny. One specific thing I remember is I wrote a column kind of trashing the offensive line and saying this and that, and then he pulled me aside and said, I really think our offensive line's playing, pretty good. And then literally at the beginning of this year, he said, I don't think our offensive line made the jump that was necessary last year. And then I was like, I don't know why you got on top of me for that then, but whatever. But no, I was kind of not, I don't know what the word is. I was kind of like a striking force at Idaho practices. When they were winning and stuff and I was writing good stuff, they were looking at me good. But, I mean, Baney can attest to it. There's times I came here from Idaho practices and their, whatever, SIDs or whatever would be on my case, coaches, players. I was a pretty striking figure for that Idaho team.
And just specific to you and the Idaho beat and how things have changed, there used to be a lot more media that would cover UI sports, and really, Treeb, you were on a little bit of an island. The nice thing about you could kind of blend in a little with the crowd, and when I'm saying this is just the small matter of just
avoiding conflict.
Yeah, and just your day-to-day life of doing your job. At least. When even when I covered Idaho, well, the Idaho Statesman would have stories, the Spokesman Review would have stories, the Moscow Pullman Daily News had their own person. It wasn't a shared person, and so at least the coach had a few other media sources to get mad at. He really didn't. You were on the beat. It was
just me.
You were about the one-man band.
Yeah, and Pete Harriman sometimes.
Yeah. So
and he kind of just did interest stories and gamers every once in a while. But go ahead.
Okay. So I did want to go back. So you mentioned you did some work for the WSU Cougars. And I just wanted to ask, a personal question, since I'm a Patriots fan, obviously, have you interacted with Bledsoe at all during your time? Or?
No, I never did. He, I can't even, I don't even remember covering a game that he was at. Really, the WSU quarterback who I covered the most was Jason Gesser, and he was... he went on to some ignominious developments later on. But when he was the quarterback there, he was so exciting, and he was kind of the Pied Piper of that group. He really sort of set the tone for some really good teams. He was the quarterback on their second Rose Bowl team in 2002. And anyway, it was a lot of fun to cover. He had great quotes. Here's one for you, Trey. A little off topic. Probably the thing you'd be most impressed with was. I'm sorry. You have that on the list?
Well, no, you can go ahead.
Okay.
I have this on. I have it on here for sure. I know exactly what you're gonna say, but you can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So my brief time in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Coincided with the Patriots' first Super Bowl win with Tom Brady at quarterback, and I hadn't been there very long at that point. In fact, I guess it was probably that was like January or February of 2002.
2002, because they won it in 2001. So.
Yeah, and they won the Super Bowl, and my boss, one of my bosses said, well, Adam Vinatieri, he went to school in South Dakota. He grew up in South Dakota.
South Dakota, yeah.
Went to University of South Dakota or South Dakota State, one of those.
Well, yeah, one of them.
And they said he made the kick, so try to get in touch with him. And I don't remember if I went through the Patriots or his parents or what.
So, yeah.
And I left a message and I said, well, he just won the Super Bowl. He's not going to call me back.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I was asleep one morning in my one-bedroom apartment, my studio apartment, and my phone rang. It wasn't even a cell phone. It was my landline. And I picked it up, and who was this? And the voice said, hey, Matt, it's Adam Vinatieri. And I was like, whoa, okay. And so I quickly came to and did the interview. And anyway, that was fun.
Yeah, no, he seems like an awesome guy from what
Yeah.
I've seen. Like, him do interviews and all that, and definitely probably the best, kicker in the NFL, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I even said to him, I said, geez, you just won the Super Bowl. Why are you calling me back? And he said, well, if, my parents, they wouldn't appreciate if I just blew somebody off. So that was nice of him to say.
That was very nice. What do you remember from your South Dakota stint? That's something I haven't heard you talk about much. I know it was short. How long was it?
It was, I went there in, like, New Year's Day, 2002.
Yeah.
And was there only until, like, August of that year.
Literally like my Sandpoint stint.
Yeah. And I had graduated from college. There wasn't a full-time job here, so I just started applying all over the country. And, it was, I liked it. I wish I had maybe spent a little more time there because it was a different experience. It was kind of neat. They kind of it was a bigger paper than the Tribune. They had a little more resources, so they even I ended up covering a national tournament in Branson, Missouri, the NAIA Division II basketball tournament. Yeah, how about that? And they right before I left, they were talking about sending me to the Dallas Cowboys camp because they had a South Dakota kid playing for the Cowboys. And anyway, it was good staff there. Those were great guys. When I was in college, I had the idea that I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to just go see the world a little bit. And I went to South Dakota in the winter, and I was like, Idaho wasn't too bad.
Right.
And, and so, I scurried back to Lewiston when a full-time job came open here.
Yeah.
And
kind of sounds similar to this guy's story a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you? So did you have a notion of like, well, I'm leaving Lewiston and I'm not coming back?
Yeah, no, I did because it was kind of like, when you're in the part-time world, it's like you can only log this amount of hours, and they're like, oh, you're logging too many hours. And then I was like, I got enough log clips, I can go and get a full-time job. So then I was like, oh, I'm going to go do this one-man show, story in Sandpoint, and get enough clips and never come back. And then I was crying every day.
Would you say that, going up to South Dakota, would you say that those people, because when I think of South Dakota, I don't really think that they're
I think of nothing.
really, well, not that they're really, that interested in sports. Would you say that they're pretty passionate about sports more so than here, or would you say that it's about the same?
Well, that's
South Dakota State.
That's a good question. That's hard to say. There were certainly some aspects of it that were a lot different than here. I don't know why this one sticks out in my mind. One night I went to cover a basketball game in a town called Orange City, Iowa.
Yeah.
And in Orange City, Iowa, I drove there, and it was a couple-hour drive, and I went there, and when you walked in, of course it's cold.
Yeah.
Bitterly cold.
Bitter cold.
And when I walked in, there, in the concourse as you walked in, there were this enormous row of coat hangers, or not coat hangers, but little things you'd hang your coat on. Everybody would come in, hang their coat out there. And, that's something a little different. Anyway, in terms of their passion for sports, probably somewhat similar to here. I mean, here's my opinion. Tell me if you guys agree. I think there's a lot more passion for sports elsewhere than there is here. I think people here, they have, they like sports, but they also like working on their pickup.
Hunting, fishing, the outdoors.
Yeah, they like camping.
I think high school sports is what more people are passionate about here.
Yeah.
And like college level sports. I mean, people don't even like the NFL here because they kneel for the anthem. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Treeb over here bringing the controversy.
You've been watching too much. And, it's true. He both, the year before he arrived here. So, I mean, it was a program that had...
Class.
It was good. But we were doing it a different way. And I was trying... Anyway, he says things that I still quote to this day.
Yeah.
I have this really vivid memory of before he didn't announce office, and we talked maybe about 15 or 20 minutes about the World Series. They would go to a road game somewhere, like, I think maybe even going to a World Series like in Lubbock, Texas, and they would drive all these RVs. They rented these RVs somehow, and they would have 15 players stuffed in an RV, and they had CBs so they could keep in touch with each other. And I just remember him talking about that, and one of the RVs would get lost, and they'd get on the CB and like, hey, where are you guys? And they'd say, oh, sorry, Ed, we had to stop to take a leak. And he'd say, hey, you got to get up here, come on, we're late. Anyway, so, and I remember it was, I'd never seen him at, he seemed to be at such peace with things. And anyway, maybe it wasn't surprising that he retired after that. But it was never a dull moment covering Ed. And anyway, he's one of the legends, and I feel pretty lucky that I got to cover him so much.
Yeah. And then I just want to talk about the NAIA World Series just for a brief second. Before, I'm going to let Trey kind of rattle some off, because I can see him studying the playbook here.
Very good.
Yeah, but, there's, this at our newspaper, the Lewiston Tribune, there's nothing like the NAIA World Series when you're a sports guy, because it kind of signifies the end of the sports year, but it's also a pain in the ass. Like, obviously, it sucks at points, but at the end of the year, you get to go to the NAIA World Series party, which I believe you kind of started, and I think, it's something that just kind of, it's really a morale booster at the end, and there's nothing like sitting in the press box with the stat man and Sam and, oh man, I'm blanking on his name, the play-by-play guy.
Danner,
and there's nothing like it, kind of take me through the NAIA World Series and your memories from that.
Yeah, it's everything you said. It's such a large amount of work, but also it's a lot of fun, and it is the end of the sports calendar around here.
Yeah.
You can kind of take it easy after that. It came back here in 2000. In fact, in 1998 when they announced it was returning, I was even at the news conference when the LCSC announced that they had secured the series to bring it back here. And so I've other than 1 year when I was in South Dakota, I've kind of been involved in covering it every year since then.
That's awesome.
And it's frankly, it's one of the reasons I got out of sports.
Yeah.
Because
but you're still involved in it.
I know. I can't escape it. But it is a lot of fun, and it's neat from the point of view. The neat thing about it, lots of neat things about it, but the teams that come here, they're not used to getting coverage. And so they're usually pretty receptive to talking with us, and these are colleges that they aren't big time programs. I mean, these are like I say, these are, in fact, LCSC always seems to be a really tightly run ship compared to a lot of these schools. They kind of just piece it together, all these schools, and so lots of interesting characters that we've covered over the years.
Billy Barry's my favorite.
Yeah, and a lot of people who you see year after year, and it's fun to chat with them. And the thing about it, it's really been a part of my life for more than half of my life. When it first came back here, I was 21 years old, and I can recall so many things that I have memories. I remember being in the press box making arrangements for my wedding. I remember, the end of it one year after the last game got over. My wife called me and said her dad had died.
Oh,
and it's just all these things, and my kids, and anyway, so it's kind of, you have all these memories that get tied to it, and so
save here, but it did freeze.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay, we're back.
Looks like
okay, we're back. We're back though.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
I'm gonna let Trey rattle these off. And
yeah,
take a picture.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, going off of, the NAIA World Series, awesome event's been running for quite some time. What would you say are your favorite, sporting events that have been covered in the Valley as a whole that you like to cover?
Well, that's a good question, Trey. The series is right up there. The Lewiston-Clarkston football game's fun. That's always a classic, and of course the Golden Throne basketball games are great.
Yeah.
Covering the Apple Cup is always fun when the Cougars and the Huskies play, and when Idaho and Boise State used to play, that was always a lot of fun in football.
Yeah.
In fact, the last time they played, I covered that one when. Let's see, was it the last one? Anyway, the one I'm thinking of, it was when Dennis Erickson was the coach of the Vandals, and it was early in the season, and Idaho had gotten off to a pretty good start. I think they were both teams were 3-0 in the WAC. Mm-hmm. And they played at the Kibbe Dome, and I remember, after going to many years of kind of the Kibbe Dome being a kind of a dull place because the team wasn't that good, it was rocking that day, and the Vandals even kind of had a vague chance in that game, and made it competitive, and there were some pretty fired up moments. So yeah, that was a great one, but and I think. Trevin would agree with me. Some of the best events are the small schools sports.
Eight-man football is the best.
Yeah, eight-man football is so much fun. It's just especially when you cover one of these little schools a lot, you really get to know the kids and the coaches and even the fans. You get to know them, and that's a lot of fun. I often think, I wouldn't mind. I don't think I've done it yet, but I one of these days I just want to, on a Friday night, just go out and watch an 8-man game. That would be fun.
That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do.
So what's your favorite 8-man venue to go to?
My two favorites are Kendrick and Lapley.
Okay, yeah.
I think those are my two favorite. I also want to give a shout out to Kamei too. I do like going out to Kamei a lot. My favorite event, speaking of that, covering Idaho and stuff, I've done a lot of cool Idaho games, when they were good. But I think my favorite event to cover, period, is the Avista Holiday basketball tournament. Yeah. I think that's my favorite thing to cover year in and year out. I think it's a lot of it too is like me and Dawn kind of built that coverage up pretty good, because we did for 2 years we did a podcast previewing it, recapping it, and we'd have the coaches on, and we did and it's on my birthday weekend, so I would always do it there, and I thought it was cool. That was always my favorite one.
And I guess was it
and Tadco runs it too.
Yeah. And I guess maybe since there's not a lot going on that time of year during the holidays, it's kind of you're able to kind of focus on it. Is that one of the keys of it?
Yeah, I think that, and then I think that's exactly it. Like, there's not a whole lot of stuff going on at that time, other than like maybe like one or two schools here or there doing other holiday tournaments. And then I remember, like, one year I covered like all the first round games, and it was like I was there from 8 a.m. until 7 p.m. and it was just like the worst, but also the best. And it was my birthday. It was
your favorite birthday ever.
Yeah, no, and I think just like the grind of it made me like just really love it and really take like pride in covering that kind of event.
Yeah. So I did want to ask you, because we're talking a lot about basketball, baseball, football, the major sports. Another sport that I've noticed has been kind of getting a lot of clout recently.
Pickleball.
Is
breakdancing.
Yeah.
Breakdance, yeah.
But no, I did want to talk about MMA at first, because obviously you have the Clearwater Combat and all those events. It's been getting kind of nice following. So when you were coming up, obviously you had Austin Arnett is a big name that kind of got on the map with the whole MMA thing. When you first got introduced to that sort of thing, what was your whole opinion on it? And I guess now what's your take on that?
Well, okay, here this is separate from sports writing or anything. I remember the first one of these like Ultimate Fighter things.
You were right around when that started.
Yeah, I remember my uncle got the pay-per-view.
UFC 1? Nice.
And I don't know if it was even UFC. We went to, because it was back then, it wasn't like there was like a sumo guy and there was a karate guy and a boxer guy.
That was awesome. Dude,
I thought it was neat. Anyway, I like it. It's I don't know. I haven't quite dove into it quite a bit. Maybe I'm too elderly for it, but no, I just remember that, watching the sumo guy against the karate guy, and and I think I cheered for the sumo guy.
Yeah,
I don't remember who won, but I in fact, I don't even really have a good memory of it. It's well, I think what I do remember, it's kind of hard for a sumo guy and a karate guy to fight.
Kind of mix.
Because the sumo guy's trying to do sumo moves and the karate guy's doing karate moves.
Yeah.
So are you a big fan of UFC?
Not really. I was just asking because it's been getting a lot of traction here in the local area with like the casinos and all that, a lot of local fighters. So I was just curious if that's something that you guys were kind of keeping an eye on.
We did a little story on Drake Randall, who's he's one fight away from a UFC contract.
Yeah, which that's coming up soon. He's going to be on TV, I think.
Yeah. He's fighting a guy who's like 11-0 too. So I mean, it's going to be a pretty good fight, I think.
Yeah.
And, so going back to, I do want to talk about golf, another sport that I don't watch at all, but it is my understanding that Clarkston actually has a pretty known golfer.
Wow, you pulled this out on your own research. I didn't tell you this.
Yeah. Well, I watched the documentary he was featured in.
Oh, there you go. That's still your own research.
So so is that a sport that you're kind of well versed in, and kind of what's your overall overview on that, or?
Well, and of course you're talking about Joel Damon, Clarkston's Joel Damon, and he's a great guy. It's fun to have watched his career. I remember interviewing him when he was in high school, and
I've never talked to him.
Have you? Oh well, he's actually, here's a funny Joel Damon story. I've got his number in my phone, and a couple of years ago I was looking to call one of our reporters whose name is Joel.
Yeah,
I accidentally dialed Joel Damon.
Yeah.
And when I realized that, and I hung up. I like, well, that's fine. Then he called me back right away, and he's like, "Hey, Matt, what is it?" That's okay. I'm trying to call someone else. Oh, okay, we'll call anytime.
He's like, "Did I do something good?"
Anyway, he is a lot of fun. I think people, if
we do
you've
the
heard
Damon watch,
and of course if you've heard him on podcasts, if you've seen him on TV and doing interviews, he's a guy that's easy to root for, and and you got to like that he's a guy. It kind of occurred to me one thing, Trey, when we were talking about press conferences. Anyway, the thing I never liked is when members of the media would kind of big time each other, like a known member of the media would kind of cast a wide shadow.
I kind of get that vibe listening to the pros and all that,
Yeah.
like well-known people. Yeah.
And the thing that I really appreciate about Joel Damon, and as evidenced by my phone story, that he's not a guy that big times people, and I appreciate that. And you hear about him coming back, and he knows everybody, and anyway, that's one of the things that I really like about him, and his caddy Gino Bonelli's a great guy, and anyway, those are guys easy to root for.
Yeah, another local guy that doesn't big time people is like the Ellis family.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Like Caden Ellis when he got paid. I mean, I did a story on him. He called me right away. I mean, those are good people in our area too. I would say.
Yeah.
The Ellis family.
Did you ever interact with Van Der Esch at all?
No, I didn't. Baney might have.
Let's see. I don't know if I ever. I've talked to his dad. I don't think I've spoken to him, but anyway, we've had some of our reporters. They covered him a lot, and they're a down to earth crew as well.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about Leighton Vander Esch is he was a Pro Bowler. He was an All-Pro. I mean, this is an accomplished guy, and yet, you know what accolade eluded him? He was never the Tribune's Prep Athlete of the Week.
Oh yeah.
And we put him up on the poll week after week because it's a Leighton Vander Esch threw for 400 yards, rushed for 200 more, made 13 tackles, 5 interceptions, whatever, and then there'd be a girl from Deary who
scored 13 points.
Yeah, scored a bucket to win the game, and she won the Athlete of the Week.
That's a thing that we need to talk about more is the Prep Athlete of the Week deal. Because Case, why not too? Granted, he's won probably every year he's been in high school, but there's been games he's had where he's scored 60 points and he's been shafted. But
did he not win it?
He did win.
But what was his? Was it 60 was his high?
60, yeah. And he didn't win.
Didn't win that week.
He didn't win that week.
There was a better Prep Athlete of the Week that week.
So he didn't win when he scored 60, and he lost to a Lewiston girl who accidentally also got nominated twice. When obviously they're supposed to only get nominated once.
Yeah.
And she got nominated twice, so she won twice in the same season.
It is a popularity contest, or maybe not even that. It's a contest to see who can get their friends to vote for them the most.
Yeah,
it's all politics, is what it sounds like.
It's all CNN, is what it is.
Yeah. Well, let's check with our politics expert, Trevin.
Case, why not? He's too liberal for these polls.
Treeb faced a lot of that when he was coming up playing sports.
Yeah.
The politics.
Yeah, I did a little bit, but not too hard. Now, Baney, before we get into the end of this podcast, just a couple more quick hits here. Obviously, no longer in sports, Baney is. He's the big time. He's a big head honcho around here. What made you want to leave sports, and do you ever miss it?
Okay, the main thing was when you work in sports, you work at night and on the weekend, and I've got 2 kids, and actually working in sports was great when my kids were little because I would stay home with them during the day. And then my wife would come home from her job, and then I would go to work, and she would take them. But then when they started going to school, I didn't get to see them as much, and so that was kind of the main reason. And plus, I just the late nights were getting too much. I couldn't do it anymore.
Old man needs to sleep. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. And do I miss it? Not much.
No.
Just to be honest, there are times that I every once in a while be like, oh man, this looks like a fun thing to be involved in. If there's kind of a big game coming up or a neat project that we're working on. But I think I got my fill of it, and I got plenty of new problems now.
And then, did you ever, obviously we've talked a lot about you being a reporter in this business. Did you ever feel like you were going to be an editor in this job? Kind of be like leading the ship, whether it was sports or being a managing editor. Did you ever think you'd be in that leadership role?
Not early on, but as I think probably when I got married and it's sort of we bought a home here and it kind of became clear I probably wasn't gonna leave. At that point I was kind of like, well, yeah, I probably will kind of move up the ladder a little bit. I'll be, the nice thing about being a sports writer is you can kind of focus on your stories and the features you have planned. You don't have to be worried as much about planning everything out. But if you're willing to take the responsibility of doing that, of being the planner and the organizer, then the job becomes a little more stable. And so I just kind of I don't know, I don't remember thinking about it much, but when our sports editor at the time, Jim Browett, left in 2009, it was pretty clear that I was kind of the guy up, and so yeah, I kind of just slid into that role at that point.
Yeah, and then what about moving to like the city editor and then the managing editor? Moving from sports to that position, was that the natural progression, you think, or did you just want to be the city editor? Where were you at there?
It was, mostly to get away from the sports grind
as far as you could.
Yeah, that's right. I started out. I became the assistant city editor to begin with, and that was still nights, but it was weekends off, and it was definitely less of a grind. It was so I made that move mostly just because the nights were starting to kill me at that point. And then it just as things have played out, I just kind of have moved up the ladder a little bit. And at this point now, we're working on evolving whatever the newspaper is going to become in the future. And so that's kind of the mission that I'm dedicated to. Is it's going to be different. There are things about the newspaper that I don't ever want to change, but many things that will kind of evolve as we move along.
And then, do you ever take in and just think about how you're an old man and how you've mentored all these people, not only from the sports desk, but also the news side? And was that ever anything that you thought you were going to do, is, mentor these people to not only like level up their careers for where they're at the Tribune, but also, you look at guys like Theo Lawson, Michael Sean Dugar, who, obviously credit you to their success, I would think, and put you down as a reference. How does that feel to kind of be a part of their success and be kind of a leader in that charge?
Oh, that's great. And those guys would be fine without me, but it was neat to get to work with them, and any help I might have given them, that's great. But it's cool to see folks that you worked with move on and do well in things, and anyway, I enjoy that quite a bit, and it's cool to. Having been here long enough now, it's neat to have worked with some legends who aren't here anymore, and then to also work with young people who kind of go on and do great things. So that's a fun aspect of it, of being around so long.
And then I'm not going to ask you like who you hired to do this, but while you hire people, as a sports editor and now as a managing editor, what's the craziest application you've ever seen that you didn't end up giving them the job?
Well, I think we had a part-timer once, and we were hiring a part-time sports writer, and he was an old man, even older than me, and he came in to talk, and listen, this is a part-time sports writer job, as one of my predecessors used to say, this is just for beer money.
Yeah.
And this guy came in and he had a briefcase, and I kept trying to ask him about I had my list of questions, do you know generally sports rules? Have you been involved in journalism? And he kept interrupting and saying, so what would I be paid? And is there vacation? And how long is my lunch break? And anyway, we did that
you don't
interview.
Get a lunch break in sports.
And yeah, I know, and I don't remember how we parted, but I do remember thinking, all right, well, I'll never see you again. And then one interview that sticks in my mind, I kind of wish I had it to do over again because I think I made the wrong decision. But when I was first sports editor, I interviewed Cody Wint, and I said to myself, well, this guy's kind of an interesting character. I don't know if it would quite work in sports, so I didn't hire him. I hired the other guy. Finally, I got a chance to redo that later, and I hired Cody then. I should have hired him back then, though, because Cody's a great sports writer and an interesting guy for sure.
Yeah, and you definitely hired the most persistent guy that really wanted the part-time job in Treeb and Tray.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
we tried to get rid of him, but we couldn't.
Yeah, no, and I really wanted that part-time job, damn it. You got any more questions for Baney before we get into this?
Well, I guess as we're on the topic, do you have any memories on what Treeb was like when you interviewed him, or?
Well, I mean, I remember him being Theo Lawson's job shadow kid, and let's see, I remember maybe thinking at the time, well, we'll never see that guy again. But
8 years later,
right? No, and the thing about Trevin is I remember one of my early impressions of him was that here's a Lewiston guy. In all that's good and bad about that, here's a Lewiston guy. And there's lots of good and a little questionable characteristics too. But and I kind of saw myself in him a little bit. We were both Lewiston guys. We know what it's like to live in Lewiston.
And now I'm basically Baney's assistant.
That's it.
Yeah. What are the good and bads of Lewiston guys, you reckon?
Well, Lewiston guys are, they're down to earth, and they're, they're not. I keep coming back to it. They don't big time people, and usually pretty direct and everything. Also, sometimes they don't have. Could have a little bit wider worldview than they do.
That's fair. That's fair.
But mostly good. I'll take a Lewiston guy over a lot of other guys.
That's fair. All right. Now it's time for everybody's favorite segment of the show. It is Trump the Tray. Give me the noise. Go. No, go.
Da-na-na, da-na-na.
That's pretty good. All right, today's Trump the Tray game subjects are, you ready?
Yeah, let's hear them.
1980s sports.
You gotta be at a disadvantage there. You gotta be. Okay.
Topic number 2, rap.
Okay, well, I probably got the advantage on that one.
Yeah, we got.
We'll see about that.
Me and Baney were talking a little bit before that, and we were gonna go. Gen Z lingo, but then I thought Baney was gonna have too much of an advantage on that with his kids, so I decided not to do that.
Hey, skibidi toilet.
You know I'm barely a Gen Z.
Yeah, I know. Baney's
like 1 year.
Baney, you've been in the sports business as long as both me and Tray have been alive.
Is that right? Oh my gosh.
Trey's been alive since 97.
97.
Yeah.
What's his birthday?
March. St. Patrick's Day. He's also a proud Irishman.
Well, now they know my date of birth.
Oh, no. Oh.
If you want to know his social security number, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, starting things off, gentlemen, with 1980s sports. We're gonna say name Super Bowl winners from the 1980s until someone gives up. And I will tell you, Trey. Actually, I don't know. I think this will give Baney an advantage if I tell you this. So,
I'm gonna win this.
okay,
I know them all.
all right.
And we're talking teams, or
Yeah,
or-
teams.
Okay, teams.
All right, 49ers.
Correct. They won it twice.
New York Giants.
Correct.
The Raiders.
Correct. They won it twice.
Chicago Bears.
Correct.
The Commanders, but back then they were
Correct.
the
They won it
Redskins.
twice.
Wow. Okay. Are these in the 1980s?
In the 1980s.
Was the game in the 1980s?
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Steelers.
Incorrect.
January of 1980. Didn't they win?
So here's. So what did we say here? You had.
I said the Raiders,
Yep.
and then
The Redskins, right?
yeah,
And then you said.
I said the Bears and the Giants, and he said the 49ers.
Oh.
I said the 49ers. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. You guys cleared them all.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. You guys cleared them
And I
all.
think
That's my bad.
and if I may say, I think the 49ers won 3 in the 80s.
I have them down for times too. But
81, 80, 88, and 89, I think.
did they? Okay.
Yeah.
It might-
And then
my notes might be wrong here, but
I
either
think-
way, those are the teams I reckon.
I think Dallas won 3 in the 90s.
In the 90s, yeah.
Yeah, and
All right. Next question. Name NFL MVPs from the 1980s.
Ooh.
I'm gonna go with. I want to say Elway.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Joe Montana.
Correct.
Troy Aikman.
That is incorrect. Dan, you got a correct answer?
Yeah.
Let's see. There was a kicker that won it for the Redskins.
Yeah.
Okay, just a sec. Eric Dickerson.
Incorrect.
Oh, geez.
Trey, back to you. No one won the point yet.
Jerry Rice.
Incorrect.
Marcus Allen.
Correct.
Oh,
Okay.
there you go. Yeah.
Trey, you got one? Or you had an incorrect. Never
Yeah.
mind. Okay, all right. Baney gets that point. We had a tie, so it's 1-0 Baney here in the 1980s game. So remember those 80s Super Bowl winners. We had the Raiders with 2, Niners with 2 or 3, TBD, Redskins, Bears, and Giants.
Okay.
Name Super Bowl MVPs until someone gives up.
I'm gonna throw a wild one right off the bat. Phil Simms.
Correct.
That's correct, yeah.
All right.
Joe Montana.
Correct.
Marcus Allen.
Correct.
Doug Williams.
Correct. You guessed him for MVP. 3,
I don't even.
2.
Rice.
Yep, correct.
Okay.
Richard Dent.
Correct. That's a good
That's
pull.
a good one. I'm probably wrong, but I'm gonna say Rich Gannon.
Oh, that's a good fucking guess. That is incorrect.
Yeah.
You got one?
Who haven't we got yet? Let's see. Did he said Rice, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we missing anybody?
Missing the skins. Missing all the skins.
Well, we got Doug Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Theismann.
Correct. Correct, yes. Okay. Moving on to topic number 2 with Baney having a 2-1 lead. Right?
Trey, you're holding your own, man. I didn't.
that was pretty good on the 80s. Props to you, man. Props to you on the 80s. That's better than I would do.
History buff.
No, I was literally going to do just history straight up. And I was... Okay, before we get into rap, name all the presidents you can off the top of your dome right now.
Obama.
Okay.
Reagan.
Okay.
Trump.
Okay.
Kennedy.
Okay. 3, 2.
I'm sure I can. I
You can even name the current president.
I could name more if there wasn't a time limit. But when there's a time limit, I'm like, it goes blank sometimes.
Yeah.
But
That was pretty good. All right, we're going up.
Lincoln was a president, right? Okay. I wanted to say that, but I didn't. Yeah.
Fair enough. Abraham Lincoln obviously confused as civil rights activist most times. Abraham Lincoln was a president, right? If this was a famous podcast, that would be quoted everywhere.
Better be careful, Trey. That clip's going to get out there.
Yeah.
Good thing you're not applying to be like a security guard at a museum.
Right.
All right, 2-1, Baney lead, and we're going to the rap music. So this is where you can make your bacon here.
It's where I thrive.
Yeah, that's where you make it. You've stumped Evan. You've stumped Theo. Can you stump the Baney or the Barney, as you say?
Yeah.
All right. Name rappers who blew up. And this is you today. I don't think Baney can even do this. During the SoundCloud era.
Oh God. What does that mean?
Well, I'm gonna go with the OG, the one that started the whole SoundCloud Soldier Boy.
That's good. Yeah.
So when is this? Like what era? Like what years is this?
This is like 2011 to 2017.
Okay. Yeah. T Grizzly.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
That's a good one. XXX.
Yep.
Tentacion.
Young Gravy.
Correct.
Ski Mask, the Slump God.
Good one.
3.
Think about rappers I've told you.
Yeah.
2.
Who's the guy?
1, 0. Trey gets the point. You're thinking of Lil Yachty.
Yeah, and who's the guy you went to and you saw the
Migos?
uh
Post Malone?
Post Malone?
Yeah,
Would he have counted?
No, he
not.
wasn't really a SoundCloud rapper.
Okay.
No.
I think Hobson would have been a fair.
No.
I mean that's how he got big was the internet,
But not SoundCloud.
Yeah,
though.
that's true. That's true.
All right. Here, Baney, you can do this one. All right. Name as many rappers with the prefix Lil until someone gives up. Trey?
Wayne.
Yeah.
Little Baby.
There you go.
Lil Peep.
Little Yachty.
Yeah.
Lil Kim.
There you go.
Ooh. Little Uzi Vert.
There you go. Good fool, dude.
Pump.
Yeah, there you
go. Little Wayne.
Oh, Trey already said it. Do you got
Did he say that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you some time.
There's got to be an old little guy.
Oh, God. Or not,
Yeah.
but yeah, we did definitely die there for a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. So we're gonna figure it out. But Trey, before our guest comes back, Baney's been a heck of a guest. So
Oh yeah. Probably our top guest.
yeah, guest of the year, I would say.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a ranking at the end of the year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
yeah.
gonna have to give out some guest of the year candidates. I believe he's on the clock for the Littles.
The Littles, yeah.
That's probably what he's going. He's going to the bathroom, thinking of
Well, he left his phone here, so he can't be looking it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's probably thinking about,
Yeah.
how many littles does my son listen to when he listens to rap music?
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I'm keeping this going because I also don't know how much of that beforehand was recorded, and I don't think, I feel like when the computer's dead, it's not going to record much.
Yeah.
Well, Baney, it kept recording.
Oh,
so,
all right.
So I don't know how much it caught afterhand, or like during while it was dead. But I'll do some editing after the fact to check it. But me and Trey kept the flavor going while you were gone.
Oh, good.
So just in case it didn't catch anything, but a lot of fun during the dead computer time. But I believe you're on the clock, and you got 3 seconds to name a little rapper.
Oh, I should have been thinking about this.
3,
my son's gonna be mad at me.
2, 1.
I don't have it. Dang.
Oh, Trey,
What's? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Do you have one?
Do you have any extra ones in the chamber here?
Extra ones, and I'm sure if I really thought about it, I could probably pull off more. But it's like the whole time period. What about you? Is there any of that?
Well, I wasn't going to put a timer on you. I was going to be at it.
Well, we would be here a while if I had to tap, if I had to tap into that part of my brain.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't want you to go all Matrix here. Lil Boss X came to mind.
Yeah.
Little White.
Yeah, I was gonna say Lil White. That was one, but if we were to do 1980 rappers, do you think you could?
I think I'd do pretty good on that. I think.
Yeah, KRS-One, Big Daddy Kane.
Oh wow, this guy.
Yeah, he knows his stuff.
Yeah.
Slick Rick.
Yeah, he's
Wow.
a historian.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so I think Trey leads 3-2, right? Heading into the
Sounds right.
Yep.
to the final question. Baney, you could tie it up, and if you do tie it up, I think we already know the topic at hand that we'll do.
Presidents.
No,
President.
we'll do. I got a question in the chamber if it is a tied up question. Name white rappers until someone
All-time white rappers.
All-
right? Okay.
all-time white rappers until someone gives up. Trey.
Tom McDonald.
Okay.
Eminem.
Yeah.
Slim Jesus.
Okay.
MCA.
Okay.
Post Malone.
Okay.
Ad Rock.
Okay.
Mac Miller.
Okay.
Let's see. Mike D. Just keep naming Beastie Boys.
Macklemore.
Ooh. Who's Macklemore's buddy? Ryan Lewis?
Yeah, there you go.
Is he a rapper though?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll count
You can
it.
make all right.
I'll count it.
Okay, fair enough. Ritz.
There you go.
Vanilla Ice.
There you go.
Everlast.
Ooh.
Yeah.
This guy. Oh, God.
Three, 2, 1, 0. Baney, unfortunately, you have joined the list of Kevin and Theo of people who have unsuccessfully trumped the Trey.
I'm in good company then.
Yeah.
Good work, Trey. I'm impressed.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember listening to these thinking, well, I can beat him. But,
Yeah.
listen, folks, it's harder than it looks.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you're in person. This is the first in-person interview.
Yes.
Well,
First of many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Baney, we got 90 minutes out of you, man, and we were talking while you're in the bathroom. I feel like we've been saying this for the last 2 or 3 guests, but you may be in line for guest of the year.
Oh,
This is a good 90 minutes here. I think this is a good little preview to what our Lewis and Tribune podcast could be. Guys, make sure you listen to that on the Lewis and Tribune website. Me and the man you are listening to here, Matt Baney, will be the host. So it's going to be prime content. Baney, any parting words before we peace out here on the show?
well, thanks for having me, guys. It was fun to chat with you guys. Listening to it, I I imagined what it's like to be with Trey as he's hosting this, and it lived up to everything I expected. Anyway, it was fun, guys. Thanks for having me.
You were the perfect guest, Trey. Any parting words here?
No, we appreciate the people that are continuing to support Baney. Obviously, it was a fun time having you in. First real life in studio podcast, so I'm looking forward to getting more of those. I know Treeb probably has some guests lined up to be joining in soon, so I'm excited to what he brings to the table next. And appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to follow Treeb on YouTube, and because he's also growing YouTube as well. And as far as that, I'm out. Oh, and also check out my guy Shane Got You 11 on YouTube. We also do a podcast with him too.
Check out Shane Got You 11 for the West Coast Madden.
It's just the West Coast podcast.
The West Coast podcast. Trey will be on there probably here in a couple minutes, right?
10:30.
At 10. Oh,
yeah,
at
night.
It is. I thought it was Eastern time, but okay, 10:30 Pacific time. Trey will be on there.
West Coast time.
Yeah, and actually, by the time this podcast goes out, it's not going to matter because I'm going to upload it on Saturday. So it's already.
They'll catch it next time.
Yeah, so make sure you check out the recorded version of the West Coast podcast. Subscribe to me on Treeb Talks, and follow me on Twitter at Treeb Talks. I'm not doing a whole lot on there other than promoting my YouTube right now. It's kind of been a lull. But
retweeting CNN.
Oh, no. Last call back to that.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can escape the liberal allegations. All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning into this podcast with Matt Baney, my boss, the guy that first hired me to start this journalism journey, and the whole reason why we started this podcast, really. If it wasn't for Baney, we wouldn't be able to get these guests on. We wouldn't be able to start this podcast, right? So big ups to Matt Baney. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.